What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Cannot believe that 4 training camp practices are already in the books, yet here we are. No practice on Sunday, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a ton to discuss today. So let's go over all the news and notes and takeaways from day 4 of Packers training camp. And I want to kick things off, and I want to start by going over one of the real stars on this Packers team, and that's Rashaan Gary. I talked a little bit about him the other day, but he has been an absolute force of nature at the edge position so far for Green Bay. And as I pointed out the other day, yes, it's Zach Tom, it's Yosh Nijman, it's Cole Van Lanen, it's Royce Newman. Those are the tackles that he's going against more often than not when he's in there. But I don't care how he has been playing. He has made an absolute living in the backfield, introducing himself over and over and over to Aaron Rodgers again. And not only that, he's been terrific against the run. And he's also just showing off his incredible athleticism as well. There was a play in practice on Saturday where it's a little wide receiver screen to the outside, and Gary quickly diagnoses it, recognizes it, but then uses his freak athletic ability to go out and affect and disrupt the wide receiver screen to the outside. He's just an incredible human being to watch in person and just how he does everything. And the other thing that I want to talk about here is you can really start seeing that this defense is gravitating more towards Rashaan Gary as one of the leaders. He's kind of the guy that's leading the team down the field. Like there's just a little bit of more leadership, and it's not like a rah-rah leadership. That's not who Rashaan Gary is, at least not what we can see. It's more of like a leadership by example, but this defense is taking note of Rashaan Gary much more, and he's becoming a much bigger figure, as you would expect within this Packers defense. But through 4 practices so far, sort of 3 because Friday was a walkthrough, but he has been nothing but unstoppable, and he looks in phenomenal shape. He looks more intense. He looks so confident and just like he knows who he is at this point. And it's just really fun to watch a player like that when they realize what they're capable of. And it just doesn't seem like much is going to slow down Rashaan Gary. And if anything, when the pads come on, that's usually when Rashaan Gary is going to shine even more. So pads come on Monday. I'm so excited to see him in pads once again. He's been phenomenal in camp, and he looks primed for a huge season. So kudos to Rashaan Gary for just being him, because we knew all along that his work ethic has just been insane. He keeps himself in amazing shape, that his grind and his thirst for football just can't be satiated. So you can just tell all of those things are paying off, and he is becoming an absolute freak at edge for the Packers. All right, other news and notes from practice. First, I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but the injury list was exactly the same. So, the good news is that there were no new injuries. The bad news is that no players returned from injury. So the 8 Packers that remain out and not practicing at this point: Mason Crosby, Christian Watson, Keyshawn Nixon, Kylan Hill, David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Robert Tonyan, and Malik Taylor. And there were a lot of Packers in the rehab group actually working out on the field, where in the past couple days, especially David Bakhtiari, he has been working inside in the Hudson Center and not out where we could see him. He was out with the team in, doing the rehab work to the side. You could tell he was going through pass sets and just trying to get that knee right, trying to do different things to get that. You could tell like the mobility in his knee and those sort of things. So he's grinding, he's working. You can absolutely tell. Hopefully it's paying off. He looked good to the naked eye. You wouldn't know anything was wrong with the knee, but clearly he's still recovering, coming back and trying to figure out exactly what his body needs to do to get to 100%. But he looked good. The other player that really stood out to me was Kylan Hill. He was doing some legit, like, big time cutting and moving. And I tweeted this out as well. I can fake a lot of things. I can't fake anything from a medical standpoint. I have no idea what I'm looking at and like where they should be and what they should be doing at this point of an ACL rehab. Just not my expertise, right? But like I said with Bakhtiari, had I not known any better, I would have had no idea that Kylan Hill was coming off an ACL. Again, he was moving really, really well, and it was just excited to see him out there making those cuts, and hopefully he's able to come back sooner rather than later. But it was nice to just see Elton Jenkins, David Bakhtiari, Kylan Hill, Robert Tonyan, those guys moving around and doing some football-type activities, and who knows how far away it's going to be. Could be a long time yet, could be a short period of time, we just don't know. But just seeing those guys out there and working was at least encouraging in some capacity. Offensive line. We went back to where we were at a couple days ago with the structure of the offensive line. So Zach Tom was back at left tackle with the starters. And then from left to right, it was Zach Tom, John Runyon Jr., Josh Myers, Royce Newman, and Yash Nijman. So we didn't get any Cole Van Lanen. We didn't get any Jake Hansen. Those guys were all working with the twos. It was Tom, Runyon, Myers, Newman, and Nijman left to right all throughout practice with the ones. Speaking of Zach Tom, he had his sort of rookie ups and downs that you would kind of expect. Jerron Reed had a very nice stop on a run play where he shot into the backfield and just kind of got the better of Zach Tom. It was one of the real first flash plays that we've seen out of Jerron Reed so far. I feel like he's had a nice camp, just like nothing flashy, but that was his first kind of like wow play, and unfortunately the rookie was at the expense there. But on another play, I thought he did a tremendous job. They ran a twist and a stunt, or I should say a stunt on Zach Tom, just trying to, probably mess with his head a little bit, see how he was going to respond to it. And he responded to it perfect, responded to it like a veteran, quite honest, was super patient in his set, didn't overextend, didn't go too far to one side and then let the player loop around him. It was a really well done rep, and something that, even veterans will struggle with that at times, and he just handled it perfect. So that was a very encouraging sign that, here in practice number 4 and getting some of those first reps with the ones of his career, he was able to handle some of that stuff really with what seemed like relative ease. So definitely ups and downs for Zach Tom, and anytime you're going against guys like Preston Smith, Rashaan Gary, there's going to be some bumps in the road. Jerron Reed got the best of him on a run play, but I think there's a lot to be encouraged about with where Zach Tom is at, potentially as a starter, depending on what happens with the injuries and depending on if he can beat out a couple of those other players, the Jake Hansens and the Cole Van Lanens, the Royce Newmans, those sort of players. But he's definitely in that discussion. I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, and we'll see here, right? We want to see pads, we want to see preseason, but let's just say everyone's healthy, right? You've got David Bakhtiari, then you've got John Runyon Jr., you've got Josh Myers, and you've got Elton Jenkins. Those 4, in my opinion, are your confirmed starters. I don't think if everyone's healthy, those 4 are starting. I think the other spot is totally up for grabs, and because of Elton Jenkins, you can basically play whoever you want, right? So if you want to play Yash, you could put Yash at right tackle and then put Jenkins at right guard. If you want to do, you can put you can put Elton anywhere, so that gives you a ton of flexibility. So point being is that, if those are your 4, I think the 5th spot for that 5th offensive lineman, if and when everyone actually is healthy, you have a lot of guys fighting for that, right? Royce Newman's in that conversation, Yash Nijman's in that conversation, Zach Tom, Cole Van Lanen, Jake Hansen, and I think Sean Ryan could get in that conversation eventually too. I think you could have 6 Packers that at some point are in the conversation for that 5th starting offensive line spot. It wouldn't shock me if Zach Tom ultimately gets the nod. If you told me by the end of the season that the Packers' best offensive line was left to right, David Bakhtiari, John Runyon Jr., and then Josh Myers, Zach Tom, and Elton Jenkins, that would not shock me at all. And I think, Tom has the ability probably to play. I mean, we talk all the time about Elton Jenkins having versatility to play 5 positions. Zach Tom might be another 5-position guy. He can definitely play guard and center. There's no question about that. They started practicing him at guard and center in minicamp. Now he's at left tackle. The only position that we have, I don't know if he's played left and right guard in practice, but he definitely has the flexibility to do both of those. The only position I don't think we've seen him at is right tackle. And if you can play left tackle, you can probably play right tackle. So he might be a second Packers 5-position player. And if that does end up being the case, and if Elton Jenkins comes back healthy and looking better than ever, all of a sudden you could end up with 2 offensive linemen long term that have 5-position versatility. That would be insane. So a lot of eyes on Zach Tom and what he can do as a rookie, and if he can earn some sort of starting spot. But a really nice start overall. If he's already getting starting reps with the ones, that is a really great sign for Zach Tom. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Romeo Doubs, everyone's favorite player in training camp so far. Just, I don't know, ho-hum, probably the play of the day again, or at least in the conversation. There's probably, I think probably 2 plays in consideration for play of the day, and this would have been one of them. On the play, Jordan Love bootleg. So they were doing a bunch of runs over and over, run. And then finally, they get the play action call, and Jordan Love gets the bootleg. He rolls to his left. They've been rolling Jordan Love to his left a ton. And I mean a ton so far in training camp. I don't know if that's something that he likes doing or they're just trying to have him practice it. I'm not sure. He's done really, really well with it. But they have him going to his left, and it's a play that takes time to develop. They have a little bit, if I remember correctly, I think they had a little bit of like a max protect in to give him a little bit more time. No pressure, had time to roll to his left, and he's going from, so play action to your right, bootleg all the way to the left, and he's going to throw far deep post to the right. So he's coming and then throwing all the way back across his body to kind of where he came from. So just trying to keep the defense off kilter, right? And not knowing what's going on. You think it's a play action to the right, and then the quarterback bootlegs to the left, which makes you think Jordan Love's probably going to throw to the left, but he throws all the way back right. Beautiful route by Romeo Doubs. Has yards of separation on the play. An okay pass from Jordan Love. It got there and was completed, and it was a deep completion down the field. Jordan, by far and away, Jordan Love's longest completion of training camp so far, probably by like 20, probably like, I don't even know. If it was like a 40-yard play, I don't know exactly what it was, but if it was like a 40-yard play, it might be like 30 yards longer than anything he's completed in training camp so far. But again, a little bit underthrown. Underthrown's wrong. It was a little bit late. So it didn't get to Doubs right on time. Doubs had to sort of hold up for it. But like Romeo Doubs does, he comes down with the football, right? So had yards of separation. If Love hits him in stride, Doubs probably runs, it keeps going, right? It's probably 60, 70-yard touchdown. Instead, Doubs had to hold up for it, but became a little bit more of a contested catch situation. Doubs still comes down with it. Huge completion down the field. So just another huge play from Romeo Doubs. Had a really nice slant completion from Danny Etling. Like, Doubs is playing with Rodgers. He's playing with Love. He's playing with Etling. It doesn't matter. He's getting open. He's making plays. He's beating ones. He's beating twos. He's beating threes. He's just been all over the field. Also on a unique play, he was almost in like a little bit of like an H-back formation. We've seen this with Allen Lazard in the past, where Lazard will kind of motion in and he'll kind of be in an H-back spot, and then he'll help out in the run game. We saw it from Romeo Doubs. So he was in an H-back sort of position, and then he sort of motions in, and then as the play develops, he goes upfield. He's almost like the lead blocker on the play. So, hey, the more he can do for you, I guess, the better. Was also a punt returner. He was just all over the place. And then meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers on NFL Network following practice said, quote, Romeo Doubs has had a really nice start to camp, getting a lot of attention based on some of the plays he's made. Like the approach, very understated kid, very humble kid. We all feel really good about Romeo and the start he's off to. So this is not just a media, propaganda, like pumping up a player out of nowhere. First, the big thing that'll tell you that is like every media member has been basically gushing about what he's done so far, right? It's not just like one or two. It's literally all of them, because it's very evident. The other thing is that this is now catching the eye of, some of the Packers, and they're talking about it. Randall Cobb had some pretty glowing comments on Romeo Doubs as well. He did, however, show that he was human. He did have a drop at the end of team periods. It was like a 5-yard out, contested catch. It's sort of contested catch situation. Hit the hands, drop, no big deal. I think he's more than made up for that so far. But just another impressive day from Romeo Doubs, and once again in the conversation for play of the day, which is just becoming a habit at this point for him. I talked a little bit about Kingsley and Enagbare the other day, and this is just an example of I think it's just going to take time for him. On one play, it's a run play to his side, and they're bringing guys up in the box to stop the run, and they get a double team on Enagbare and basically wash him out of the play, and the Packers able to run right up where Kingsley Enagbare was supposed to be, holding his ground in that situation. I just think he's not quite, as I mentioned the other day, I think he just has to put on a little bit more physical strength. I think probably year 2 is where you're probably going to see a little bit more of a breakout. That being said, Enagbare did get some reps with the ones. He did have a play on a pass rush where he was one-on-one against Sal Cannella, and I think he probably would have drew a holding penalty on the play from Cannella. So there's still some flashes there. As I mentioned the other day, I think just trying to pigeonhole him as then the number 3 edge rusher and say, hey, we can give him 20 snaps. I think that's not super realistic from day one. There could be some things he brings to the table. He's going to have to be a special teams guy, and he's going to have to be a player that they can count on to set the edge and stop the run and not get washed out of those gaps. But if he can get there, great. I just, again, am pressing patience with Kingsley Enagbare. But did get reps with the one, so Green Bay's going to, I think, try him out and see just what he's capable of, because that number 3 edge rusher spot, we know, like, totally up for grabs right now. Randy Ramsey, Tipa Nalai, Ladarius Hamilton, Kingsley Enagbare. It's just going to take some time to figure out who's ultimately in that spot. Maybe Green Bay still adds a player there. I think that's probably I think that's probably the spot that might need the most help, is that backup edge rusher position. But a lot of time left, and we'll see if once pads come on, some of those things could potentially change. Overall, I thought the defense absolutely dominated the day. I thought they were sticky in coverage. They were getting plenty of pass rush. They were stuffing almost every run. In fact, I would say there's almost only and specifically the first team defense here, there's only a couple plays in the 2-minute drill where really the offense kind of got the best of them a little bit. But overall, I thought the defense was flying around. I think we saw some of the real true potential of the defense on this day. It helped also that the offense had multiple snafus as well. They had 2 fumbled snap exchanges, 2 false starts, and you could tell Rodgers was frustrated on a couple occasions, specifically with Myers and the snap on one time. So just some things that Green Bay's offense has to get cleaned up a little bit, but defense was flying around the football and really created havoc for the Packers offense for the vast majority of the day. First team offense's 2-minute drill was probably like the most talked about, or the biggest buzz sort of moments of the day. I thought AJ Dillon had an opportunity to house one of the very first touches. It's always like almost impossible to tell of like, would it have been a tackle and what they call dead and what they don't call dead. So who knows? I think AJ Dillon, like, he was ready to take it to the house and kept running. And I think he thought he was going to be gone. But either way, it was a really nice run by Dillon. But I think they called it as like a short gain. So take that for what it's worth. But that was one of the big plays. And then I think there's probably 15 seconds left in the 2-minute drill. Green Bay had driven down to about the 15, 20 yard line, somewhere in that range. And the Green Bay was starting to sort of rotate some guys in, I think, to see what they could, get in those players. And one of the players that rotated in was Shamar Jean-Charles. And he was lined up against Randall Cobb, which is kind of a fun matchup. And Rodgers threw to Cobb in the back of the end zone, and Shamar Jean-Charles skied, picked off the pass, had gorgeous coverage on the play, and looked like he came down with the game-sealing interception in that 2-minute drill period. Unfortunately, they called it incomplete. I couldn't tell from our vantage point if he was just out of bounds or if he bobbled it or what happened, but it was still a really nice play from Shamar Jean-Charles, whatever happened. But because they called it incomplete, Green Bay had 1 play left with about 10 seconds left on the clock. And don't give Aaron Rodgers that second chance, because he's going to take advantage of it. He hit Allen Lazard in the end zone for a beautiful touchdown. Eric Stokes in coverage. Allen Lazard just went up and got the ball. Perfect ball placement, beautiful body control, high pointed the ball. It just perfect execution all the way around. Just beautiful play by Rodgers, beautiful play by Lazard, and a game-winning touchdown that beat the defense because of it. One of the rare times where the defense got beat on the day. But if in fact Shamar Jean-Charles didn't come down with that interception, then Green Bay wins that rep. If they go back and look at the film and say he got his feet in, then the defense wins that rep. So we'll see. But either way, sort of like a little bit of a win for both sides at the end of the 2-minute drill there. Speaking of AJ Dillon, I mentioned that big run. He had a really nice catch in team as well against Quay Walker, ran a Texas route, got the rookie to bite a little bit. Dillon caught it in stride and picked up a big play. Dillon's had a really nice start to camp as well. Quay's playing well, just, working on some things, and that was a rare instance where he actually got beat in coverage, but I tip my hat more to Dillon and Rodgers in that situation. Adrian Amos was flying around the ball. He had a near pick to open team, and then he did a great job screaming to the outside to stop a quick pass to the outside, and then almost came up with a pick later on a play where Preston Smith had a pressure, and the ball just kind of, fluttered in the air for a while, and Amos was close to getting there, but just couldn't quite get there. But he was flying around the field. He's had a nice start to camp. One of the other stars of the day, Rico Gafford. Packer quarterbacks threw at him 3 different times and had 3 incompletions, including 2 pass breakups by Rico Gafford. So he had a really nice day. You could tell he's starting to gain a little bit more confidence. He's a really interesting player too. Was used on the return units, on multiple special teams units. He can be a corner. I don't think it's impossible that if he makes the 53, that there could be some times where he could get maybe a play or two or a package or two on the offense just because of his ridiculous speed. You could easily put him in as like the receiver that gets the toss in motion. You could bring him in to just even fake the toss and hand it off to Jones or Dillon as just sort of a decoy on a play. I don't think it's impossible that he could legit get some reps on offense if he made the team. That is a super valuable player if you look at it from that standpoint, where you only get 48 guys active on game day. If you've got one of them that could be your fifth corner, your probably like in a game day situation, probably like your sixth and emergency receiver, but might actually get a couple of plays as like a gadget type of player, kick returner, kick gunner, punt gunner. Like, he could legitimately be on. He could even probably be the outside guy on the field goal block team because of his ridiculous speed. So there's a lot of things that Rico Gafford could bring to the table. And because of that, and especially if he's, keeps getting thrown at and keeps batting away balls, there could be some real potential there for Gafford. He's been a fun player to watch, and his juice is real. He's got some real crazy speed. KB Nento, by the way, also a really nice day. Also had two pass breakups and a near interception. So had that rough first practice, bounced back really, really well in day 2 of practice, and now, kind of strung together back-to-back impressive practices if you take out that, Friday walkthrough. But yeah, he's had back-to-back really nice days. And I think if you look at that corner position, right, the three players that are battling probably for the 5 and 6 spots, or at least at the top of that list, KB Nento, Shamar Jean-Charles, Rico Gafford. Probably fair to say that Shamar is a leg up based on his draft positioning and things like that. That's assuming that Keyshawn Nixon gets healthy and wins that number 4 spot, which he had in mini camps and OTAs. But there's a real possibility that Ento and Gafford are fighting for one spot. The quarterbacks didn't have much success targeting either player, and I think a combined 0 for 5 with 4 pass breakups for those two. So nice day for those two corners. Pat O'Donnell, we got to see our first live punting of practice so far. He was fantastic. I know Rob Domovsky had him with some really nice hang times, had the stopwatch going, so kudos to Rob on that. But Pat O'Donnell had a really nice day, had some real serious hang time, some good directional kicking. I was impressed with our first glance at Pat O'Donnell. Dalen Levitt was working as the personal protector on the play. Speaking of special teams, your punt returners for the day were Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers, Romeo Dobbs, and then the newest receiver from the CFL, Hyman. He was on there as well, so 4 different players returning punts. On a field goal block attempt, an interesting little wrinkle, they had the entire starting defense on the field goal block team. Now, I don't know if that's like, all right, emergency situation, and the opposing kicking team just had to run on the field. So you got to make sure that all those guys know how to line up if the defense is still remaining on the field. I don't know if they were like in field goal safe mode, meaning they thought they're practicing having those guys on the field in the event that they think the other team might run a fake. So they've got all their defenders on the ball, or if that's just what they want to go with on, extra points and field goals, and just say, hey, we're going to put our starters out there. And, the odds that somebody gets injured on a field goal or extra point is pretty slim. Those plays aren't like, you're usually not super colliding, right? There's usually a guy in the middle who's trying to block, 2 guys off the edge that are screaming. Like, there's not a ton that's, injury probability on those type of plays. So maybe they're just thinking like, hey, that allows us to get some of our best players out there, and maybe we can block a kick or two with those guys rather than some of the guys on our second and third teams. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's just a one-off in a practice situation, but interesting to see nonetheless. 3 players who got some reps with the ones, a little bit uncharacteristically, Dalen Levitt, Shamar Jean-Charles, and Kingsley Enagbare. And then last but not least, I think one of the surprise transactions that sort of felt like it came out of nowhere right at the end of minicamp was the release of Kurt Benkert and them keeping Danny Etling over Kurt Benkert. I gotta say, this is no disrespect to Kurt Benkert, who is awesome, fan favorite, everything. I think they made the right choice. Danny Etling's had a really live arm in camp. I've been impressed. Spins the ball well, has good mobility. This probably doesn't amount to much. He probably, at best case scenario, is their practice squad quarterback this year. But I've been pretty impressed with what Etling's done for a number 3 quarterback so far. Players of the day, I'm going to go with Rashaan Gary and Rico Gafford as my 2 players of the day. I think KB Nento would certainly be worthy of being in that discussion as well. But I'm going to go with Gafford and Gary for my 2 players of the day. That is going to do it for me today. I always appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, it takes you all of 2 seconds and 1 click to hit that subscribe button below. I would greatly appreciate it. So if you're enjoying these, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to come back every day and check these out. 365 days a year. I have never missed an episode yet. I have had people in for me from time to time, but we haven't missed one on any day yet. So we'll be right back here tomorrow. I'll kind of be recapping the biggest takeaways from 4 practices so far, since there's no practice on Sunday. But I'll be right back with reactions on Monday to practice, and again my recap of the week so far tomorrow. So make sure to check that out. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.